At this point, some of your chicks have no doubt died. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about chick mortality, sick chicks, all kinds of problems you should expect to see in the first couple weeks of raising chickens. Let you know that it's okay, it's not your fault, and talk about the next couple weeks raising chicks. This is another video in our Raising Meat Chicken series. If you've missed the first couple ones, click there to start the beginning of the playlist. Let's get into dead chicks, disfigured chicks, and all the other ones that did pretty good. So last we left you, we had the chicks arrive on farm, we settled them into their brooding space, and we monitored them really heavily for the first day and second day, really making sure they were acclimated and happy and healthy. And if you're getting chicks for the first time and you're moving them into your barn, getting them set up in your brooder, chances are everything won't be perfect, and if you monitor them heavily like we talked about in our previous video, you usually can prevent deaths. At least a lot of deaths. But there is a fact about getting chicks onto the homestead. Whether it's Cornish crosses or heritage breeds, you are going to experience some deaths. So, how many chicks died? How many of your chicks died in this batch? Don't feel bad. It is pretty normal to have some mortality when raising meat chickens. In the pasture poultry packet that John Siskovich put together, we've been talking about it throughout this series, he talks about the issue of mortality. Aw, sad little dead chicken.
That's a big dead chicken.
A big dead chicken. John in the pasture poultry packet talks about expecting budget for a 10% loss of flock as a starting point. So maybe some of you are watching this and thinking, 10%? I've never lost 10% of my chickens. Last year I got 10 chickens and none of them died. If you have a smaller batch of chickens and you really take great care of them, you pay super attention, everything's perfect, you might not lose any. And that's fantastic. But as you scale up and you get more and more.
You might lose some.
Yeah, I mean.
Size doesn't, some years you'll just have.
Do you want to be in this?
Wow.
Well, come on in. Pop in and add that. That's really good.
Sometimes, even with a smaller flock, you'll lose chicks.
I wasn't ready for you. What was that?
Sometimes you'll still lose, even with a smaller flock, you'll lose chicks. So don't give people the hope that just because they got 10 chicks means some won't die.
Yeah. The point is.
Chicks are fragile.
Yes.
Baby animals are fragile.
We always say in nature.
Yeah, you could have a hen raising chicks and she's gonna lose some.
I saw a study once that talked about deer. Wild, deer have a 50% survival rate. That means 1 out of every 2 dies. So if you've had.
You can never.
I can never make a video. I was all alone. It was quiet.
Never.
What was I saying?
As you scale up.
Right. Like John said, you should expect to see somewhere around a 10% or less mortality. If you get 50, hey, surprise baby.
Yeah, I pay you.
Are you The point is, don't be surprised, don't be shocked, don't feel bad if around 10% of your flock do die. It happens. There are things you can do to improve that, to get better. You always want to learn from the mistakes, but don't be too hard on yourself. We've been doing this for a decade, and even this year, having done it for a decade, knowing everything there could be to know about, just raising chicks, brooding chicks 101, we had a freaky thing happen. Chicks had settled into the barn, everything was going good, everybody looked healthy. We had a wicked cold snap overnight. Temperature dropped from, normal March temperatures. We had 0 degrees, and that cold, we came out in the morning to some dead chicks. It happens. The setup that we've used every year that we've been here at this homestead, that's worked without problem every year at this homestead, it wasn't enough. So we had to adapt to that current problem, and we came up with a pretty creative solution. What we wound up doing was taking our brooder space, and because it was so cold, we needed to keep the heat down low for the chicks. We wound up putting a big foam insulation board up on some sawhorses, and then surrounding the brooding space with hay bales. and it made a really warm, really cozy space. So we were able to stop the deaths from happening, warm the chicks back up, get them feeling good and healthy again, and get back onto business as normal. So when you get your chicks in for the first week, maybe even 2, remember, if 10% of your flock or less dies, you're doing okay. Don't feel bad if there's a couple deaths. If more than 10% of your flock die, something bigger is happening, something worse is happening. And we actually have had this happen in the past too. One year we had a problem where we lost about 70% of our entire flock. And again, it was to a new problem we hadn't faced before. There was an issue with what we were feeding the chicks. Only after calling specialists in the chicken feed world did we realize there was an issue with the feed we were using. We weren't getting the right protein levels and energy levels into the chicks, and they were suffering. And that was after talking to disease specialists. We had to run down every rabbit hole to figure out what's wrong with these chickens. So 10% or less is something that, you know, can happen. If you start to see numbers higher than that, there's something wrong and you need to fix it. So just be super vigilant, pay attention, but don't forget, if it happens, don't feel too bad, because the fact is, animals do die, baby animals are weak, and you will have some death to deal with. Now we're done with the gloom and doom part. Let's talk about your chicks through week 2 and week 3. As these chicks continue to grow, hopefully they're doing good, they're healthy, and you're only losing a couple of them, if any. Like I said, the smaller your flock, the less you should expect to lose, and the better you can do. And even some years we've had large flocks and had very, very minimal death. So I don't want to scare too many people. Just, you know, if it happens, it happens, but you can have really successful, total, you know, healthy flocks. As they grow, we like to graduate our chickens from bell waterers to nipple waterers. Bell waterers are very easy to get mucked up. The chickens have a tendency to get all the bedding into the waterers, and they wind up pooping in the bell waterers. And while we like to use bell waterers for chicks when they first arrive, because it's easy for them to find and get a good drink, after a certain amount of time, we start training them to nipple waterers. Nipple waterers keep the water so much cleaner, and they also help keep the brooding area a lot cleaner too, because you don't get so much water splashing all over the brooder. So we will transition to nipple waterers, and at the same time, we will be elevating our heat lamps. As we showed in our setup videos, we put our heat lamps on a chain, and that way we can lift them up over time. Every single day, as your chicks get older and further feathered, you want to be raising your heat lamps up higher and higher. And if you're wondering what temperature should they be at, Pasture Poultry Packet's got a day-by-day chart for you from day 1 to the end of week 3, where at that point, as long as you're above like 30 degrees, your chickens really will be okay. At that point, you want to harden off your chicks. So we start turning the lights off completely. We don't put them outside yet. We don't want to go from a heat lamp to the elements just like that. So we give them a little time to get used to no heat lamps, make sure they get fully feathered, and make sure that the weather gets better outside and we don't have any crazy cold snaps to worry about. Once your chicks have been hardened off, they are ready to go outside. And today is move-in day for our chicks. We like to put our chickens, we raise our Cornish crosses in John Siskovich chicken tractors. If you're thinking about building one of those, I can't recommend the chicken tractor design book enough. It was a great book, makes a great chicken tractor. Again, click right there to get all of John's books, the Pasture Poultry Packet, the Chicken Tractor book. You can actually get a bundle and get everything at once. We have been using John's chicken tractors now for, this will be our 2nd year with the Siskovich chicken tractors, and they've been fantastic. So today we're gonna get everybody, get them into some crates, and move them out onto the pasture. This is a really exciting day. Getting the chicks out of the brooder is a really great day.
These chicks get stinky very quickly, so there's a lot of cleaning that happens. You'll even notice when they're in the chicken tractor, you have to move them daily because there's so much chicken poo. But inside, it's hard to keep up with them. They're big, pooping a lot. It's time to go outside.
Coming through. Men at work.
Yeah.
Now, while we have these chicks out on grass, they still need to be given a chicken feed. They're gonna eat grass, they're gonna eat bugs, but we still need to make sure they're growing. These are broiler chickens. We want them to get big and fat and juicy, and they need a chicken feed for that. At this stage in their life, 3 weeks, 4 weeks old, really all the way to about 6 weeks, you really should still be giving them a starter chicken feed. That's a higher protein feed. And honestly, if you're doing broiler birds, there's no reason you can't give them a starter feed right up to the 8-week mark where you process them. You'll find, generally speaking, it's suggested that by about 6 weeks old, you can switch over your chickens to a grower feed, not a starter feed. That's a lower protein level. Basically, it's just less money that you have to spend at the point where they're old enough now they don't need that higher protein. But we like to get the biggest meat bird on the plate possible in 8 weeks. So a lot of years we'll just feed them starter all the way through. So something you can decide whether or not you want to do, but they're still getting a starter feed, and our birds will probably get that clear till they're done. Oh man.
That's a good feeling.
So bright. That is a great feeling.
When you see them in the chicken tractor, clean, green,
oh, yeah.
walking around, it's such a nice, that's another reason to get them on grass. It just looks so nice.
Yeah, there's such a difference. In the barn, their poop is a waste product. Now we can put it in the compost pile and put it in the gardens later, but we need to manage it. Out here,
they manage it themselves.
Their poop is adding nitrogen to our pasture.
They look like these corners, their poops are so big. They're just like waste producing machines, which is great if you got them out here.
Oh yeah.
Yay! Yay!
If you're having trouble remembering all these tips, you can find all this information in the Pasture Poultry Packet. As you've seen, I keep mine in the barn. That way this entire time when I have questions like, I've done this 10 years in a row, I still forget. What temperature should they be at? What age can I switch over their feeds? Is something wrong? How do I tell? There's a whole section on is my chicken sick and how to tell if it's sick. So if you're having a high mortality, you figure out if something's wrong. Click right there to get all of John's books. It's awesome stuff. It's been our guide through this process year after year after year. I cannot I can't say enough good things. Plus, we're an affiliate, so you help support our channel and John Siskovich, who, if you haven't seen John's videos, go check out Farm Marketing Solutions. You can click there to check out his YouTube channel. He's got some great raising chicken videos and a lot of other farm videos too.